The DNA lie that destroyed a family chat afternoon. The sky turned a dull shade of iron. A heavy stillness settled over the small house, so palpable it felt as if nature itself had sensed what was about to fracture the family within. At the dining table, James sat frozen. The DNA report lay in front of him like an open wound. 99.98% non-biological relation. Black ink on white paper. But to him, it was a knife with a polished edge. His heartbeat stuttered, then broke into a slow, painful rhythm. He couldn't inhale properly. The air felt too thick, as if refusing entry into his lungs. Deep stood several steps away. Her fingers were clasped so tightly her knuckles had turned the color of porcelain. She didn't plead. She didn't weep. Instead, she looked at him with eyes carrying hurt, fear, guilt, and an effort to remain composed. Because the last thing she wanted was to make him hurt more. James. Her voice cracked. If you want, I'll leave. The words detonated inside him. He shot up from his chair so abruptly the legs scraped against the floor. Leave? You think I want that? Deep lowered her gaze, toppling backward. You don't trust me anymore. James grabbed the edge of the DNA report, crushing it in his palm as he stepped closer. I don't trust the paper, he said softly. But you, his voice broke, you I trust. Deep's head lifted, stunned by the certainty in his tone. James took a breath that seemed to cost him everything. Whether he is biologically mine or not doesn't change the fact that I'm the one who held her when she burned with a fever. I'm the one who stayed up through the night when she had nightmares. I'm the one she called first thing every morning. His voice trembled with a raw, unguarded ache. Family isn't determined by DNA. Deep moved toward him, hands trembling with the instinct to hold him, but the living room door slammed open. James's father stood in the doorway, framed by a shadow as cold as his stare. James, he said with icy finality, enough. Your emotional theatrics end here. I have the original DNA report. The child is not my grandchild. He tossed a thick envelope onto the table. Inside, a second test, the same result. Then the ultimatum dropped like a hammer. You choose, that woman and her unrelated child. Or, your family, your future, your life. Silence suffocated the room. And then, from the hallway, small footsteps pattered forward. He rushed out and wrapped herself around James's leg. Bah, James. Did I do something wrong? The tiny voice tore through him. Deep's heart crumbled. She reached out instinctively to pick him up. But James's father blocked her with a stern hand. She is not to call him Bah anymore, James snapped. He clutched Nhi to his chest, holding her so tightly it was almost desperate. No one, he said, voice shaking with fury. No one tells her she can't call me that. His father's expression darkened. You're making a mistake, James. James raised his head. Eyes red but voice steady in a way that frightened even his father. Father, you're the one who doesn't understand. No. Family cannot be dictated by a laboratory result. For the first time. A flicker, just a flicker, of uncertainty passed through his stare. His father faltered. Deep watched, body trembling. Her heart ached, warmed, and broke all at once. Then, his father exhaled sharply, turned his back, and delivered a sentence that shattered everything. Very well. A pause. From this moment on, I sever all ties with you. I no longer have a son. The door slammed behind him, heavy, final, merciless. Deep collapsed onto the floor. He sobbed in James's arms. James himself stood motionless, as though split cleanly in two. And in the ruins of that moment, Deep's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number: "We need to talk about the test." She switched the blood sample. Deep froze. James saw the color drain from her face. A fake DNA result. Why? Who? A shadow deeper than any of them had imagined began to unfurl. And this was only the first crack. The rest of the evening passed in a silence that felt engineered. Deep tried to clean the kitchen. James tried to put Nhi to bed. Neither succeeded. By 11 p.m., the house seemed to sigh under its own exhaustion. James stepped onto the balcony, gripping his wedding ring with trembling fingers. He rarely smoked, but tonight the cigarette glowed unsteadily between his knuckles. His entire life invalidated by a sheet of paper. Exiled. Disowned. Deep approached quietly from behind. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For all of it. For bringing this pain into your life." He shook his head without looking at her. "This isn't your fault," he murmured. "But I don't know how to process any of this. I spent my whole life trying to make them proud. And now?" His throat tightened. "Now I don't even have a home to return to." Deep wanted to hold him properly now. But before she could, her phone vibrated again. No name. A second message. "Meet me tomorrow." No signature. 8 p.m. "I'll tell you who changed the blood." James frowned. "It's a trap," he muttered. "Most likely." He looked at her, protective despite his grief. "But I'm going with you." The next morning. James tried to smile as he dropped Nhi at school. But the weight behind his eyes said otherwise. As he walked back home, a black sedan was parked across the street. Engine running. Tinted windows. Inside, a man wearing sunglasses smirked as James passed. "It's time, Deep." He opened a folder on his lap. "Finally," he whispered. Inside was the real DNA report, the one that never reached James. The man tapped his finger on the paper, amused. Everything. He knew everything. 8 p.m. A faded cafe at the end of a dim street. Flickering yellow lights. One lone customer in a hooded jacket sat in the corner. Deep recognized the posture. James stiffened beside her. "That's the lab assistant?" The woman nodded nervously when they approached. Her hands shook so violently she could barely unzip her bag. Inside was an envelope identical to the one James's father had thrown. "This," she said, "is the real test." Deep's breath caught. James tightened his grip around her hand. She continued, "Someone paid me, a lot, to switch the blood sample. They handed me a vial from another child. I thought it was harmless. I did it. I can't eat. But now I can't sleep. I can't live with myself." Her voice trembled. "Please forgive me. I didn't know what he was planning." Deep steadied herself and asked, "Who hired you?" The assistant wiped her eyes. He introduced himself as, "Hi." Deep's entire body went still. "A man." James turned sharply. Her skin turned cold. "Hi. Who was he?" "Deep, do you know him?" Deep couldn't speak. Her fingers curled against her thighs, nails digging into flesh. The assistant swallowed hard. "He said to give you a message. If you don't leave, James. This is only the beginning. The air thinned." Deep heard her heartbeat in her ears. Then, headlights pierced the cafe's front window. Parked deliberately. A car. A man stepped out, leaning against the hood. Face tilted toward the glass, watching them with predatory patience. His eyes found Deep instantly. A smile curved across his face, slow, poisonous. The man who once tore her life apart. Hi. And now, who had returned to destroy everything she had managed to rebuild. James grabbed Deep's hand, voice shaking, "Tell me who he is. Please." Deep stared at the man outside, the shadow from her past she had spent years escaping. Her lips trembled. "He is the person who ruined everything for me once." Her breaths came shallow. "And now, he wants to take whatever I have left." Outside. I tapped the window gently with his knuckle. A chilling greeting. Then he smiled with a vicious tenderness that made Deep's stomach twist. "Long time no see, Deep." The storm had finally arrived. And it was only just beginning.